Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition, and we turn now to poem 500. And if you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist, then I want to congratulate you as being at least able to say, well, I've read and studied 500 of these poems. Of course, we're only 1,275 poems to go to get to the 1775 total in the Johnson edition. So it's a long journey, there's no question. But I want to congratulate you for hanging with us. Now, Emily as naturalist, Emily as transcendentalist, Emily as influenced by Emerson and Thoreau and the love of nature. We're back to another bird poem. Emily sometimes identifying herself with birds. This time we will be working with the American hummingbird. And of course, those of us who love birds always love the hummingbird because they're such an amazing bird. And she'll try and capture it here. Although the great scholar Wisher will point out, this is not her strongest poem about the American hummingbird. We'll get to it. Now, again, our assumptions that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful you've worked through our set of introductory comments, and as well that you've worked through the preceding 499 poems. We just finished with 499, those fair forgotten people. Now, again, Emily's world, in large measure, was her garden. Her father appropriated it, she loved it, she treated it as being her universe in many ways, but it always seemed to appropriate certain kinds of symbols or metaphors for her life. I want you in the reading of this poem to pay attention to all the sibilant sounds, the S sounds as well. She says it this way. By the way, hurrah, we get a reference as well to Carlo, her dog. And it's unusual for her to do this. She doesn't do this very often. To give you a sense of intimacy in regards to this poem. Within my garden rides a bird upon a single wheel, whose spokes a dizzy music make, as 'twere a traveling mill. He never stops, but slackens above the ripest rose, partakes without a lightning, and praises as he goes, till every spice is tasted, and then his fairy gig reels in remoter atmospheres. And I rejoin my dog, and he and I perplex us. If positive 'twere we or bore the garden in the brain, this curiosity, but he, the best logician, refers my clumsy eye to just vibrating blossoms, an exquisite reply. Now, the context here I think is brilliant. First of all, Emily knows that as we read a poem like this, we can't help but think about all of the gardens of literature, and especially the most important garden of literature, which is Milton's Garden of Eden, of course, the Genesis 3 account. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on Milton's Paradise Lost, and I told you guys, so much of Milton stands behind so much of what Emily does. But notice here, she's within, notice it's my garden, not my father's garden, it's my garden. And then she'll play the game of how to introduce the bird. She will say, rides a bird. And again, here it's the American hummingbird. Upon a single wheel, it's brilliant. I mean, when you see the wings moving very quickly of the hummingbird, whose spokes a dizzy music make. Again, all the S sounds here. Dizzy takes us back, of course, to the previous poem, 499. You'll remember our dizzy estimate. Dizzy music make, dizzy also taking us back to poem 186. Music make as 'twere a traveling mill. In other words, the sound of the wings. It's always stunning. We love that, don't we? Then she says about the bird, he never stops, but slackens above the ripest rose, notice capitalized, partakes without alighting, and praises as he goes till every spice is tasted. It's pure transcendentalism. It's pure Emersonian idealism. And she's celebrating, of course, the majestic simplicity, as Thoreau will talk about it, huh? And then, till every spice is tasted, and then his fairy gig reels in remoter, again, the R sounds is wonderful, in remoter atmospheres, and I rejoin my dog. Now, again, so she's got this moment when she watches this amazing thing happening with the bird, and then all of a sudden, bam, she's back to Carlos. You'll remember Carlos from poem 186. That's the only mention of Carlos. 520 we'll see him again. 663 we'll see him again as well. And now she's back with the dog. So in other words, the bird alights over the rose and then leaves, leaving her now with just the dog. And of course, we immediately think of our Homer and the Odyssey, of course, and Argos, and that whole notion of the relationship between a dog and its master or owner or pal. And I rejoin my dog. And he and I perplex us. Perplex, I think, is the key word of this entire poem. If positive twere we or bore the garden in the brain, this curiosity. In other words, did we really see what we just saw? Or was that some kind of strange imagination moment? But he, now notice we go from the bird to the dog. The best logician, the only time in all of her poetry that she uses this word logician, she uses it now, and she uses it in reference to her dog. You'll remember in our study of Plato that in the Republic, Plato said that young people learning dialectic are like puppies yanking on each other's ears in play. Notice here, this dog, Carlo, the best logician, refers my clumsy eye. In other words, snap out of it, snap out of it. You know you saw just what you saw. To just vibrating blossoms, notice, exclamation point. An exquisite reply, exclamation points. In other words, it's as if Carlo can say, hey, look, the flower's still kind of moving. The air around the flower's moving because, yeah, no, for sure, you definitely saw it. Now, Wisher points out, the great scholar, that when we get to poem 1463, that Emily will come back to this image, only more profound, more direct. This is the way she says it in 1463. A rout of effervescence with a revolving wheel, a resonance of emerald, a rush of choanile. And every blossom on the bush adjusts its tumbled head, the mail from Tunis, probably, an easy morning's ride. We can't help but think of course, Thoreau's classic comment in Walden as well about newspapers and the like. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Also, 507. How about this one? She sights a bird, she chuckles, she flattens, then she crawls, she runs without the look of feet. Her eyes increase to balls. Her jaws stir, twitching, hungry. Her teeth can hardly stand. She leaps, but Robin leapt the first. Ah, pussy of the sand. The hope so juicy ripening, you almost bathed your tongue when bliss disclosed 100 toes and fled with every one. Of course, the kitty cat trying to get the bird. It's brilliant. What are we going to say about this poem at 2A? I think our argument is that nature is always amazing and perplexing as well. At 2B, I love the S sounds. It's a fun poem to read. At 3A, we mentioned, of course, the Carlo, the dog poems of 186, 520, and 663. Finally, what bird is your favorite to tie yourself to a poem like this? And is your dog your best logician? I hope so. And I hope you enjoy reading poems to him. Or your cat. Thank you.